938 Live. This is Talkback.
Asking you today how receptive you think companies have been in re-employing older workers on fair terms. If you're an older worker, tell us what your experience has been like. Are employers reluctant to give you a chance? And even if they do you have to settle for stagnant or lower pay for the same amount of work as before? Now, wages and medical bills, these are employers' concerns when it comes to rehiring workers older, over the age of 65. They're hoping for subsidies that could lighten the burden. This comes in the wake of the Manpower Ministry's announcement that from next January, firms that voluntarily rehire older workers past 65 will be offered incentives. Now, the details are now being worked out and they will be announced next year. Currently, under the Retirement and Re-employment Act, which kicked in 2012, companies are required to re-employ eligible workers when they turn 62 up to the age of 65. Experts say that re-employment policies would actually work in favor of businesses in terms of addressing the labor crunch. Considering this, should companies really be asking for incentives to do something that would ultimately help their business?
This is the thing I don't understand, the incentives. Why do you need to be incentivized to employ older workers?
Well, the assumption is that older workers will be less productive,
Slower,
so on and so forth.
all that sort, yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess in some cases it's true, but not in all cases. And
True.
I think we have to start being a lot more age neutral here, because
Yeah.
don't we know if younger workers were also unproductive, So we've got to start being age neutral and judge a person based on his or her capabilities.
Yep.
So because of that, I think some companies feel justified in cutting salaries. Even CPF contribution rates for older workers are lower.
Yeah.
Once you hit 50, it starts to cascade downwards.
That's right.
Probably because of that reason as well. The assumption is that you will be less productive, so on and so forth. But is that a fair assumption to make? Now, some companies have suggested wage subsidies of between 10 and 25%. They say this will allow them to reduce older workers' working hours, yet offer them higher salaries. Now, that sounds okay if that's what you want to do, because some older workers might say, I just want to work part-time, for instance.
That's right, yeah.
But how much help is enough? If you're an employer, we want to hear from you as well. Call us on 669-11938 or talk to us on Facebook, official 938 Live.
Now, we've got someone on the line. We've got C. Hi, good morning.
Hi, Andre. Good morning.
Yes.
Morning.
Barity.
About this topic that you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, I'm 62, coming to 63. Okay. And what I'm saying is that the government has been encouraging employers to employ elderly workers. But unfortunately, for my case, I've been sending in a lot of applications, but I was not even called up for interview.
Your company did not want to re-employ you? I mean, were you working up to 62?
I was.
Right.
But I was thinking of a switch, because initially I was doing all this admin work. Okay, but after my parents passed away, I was thinking of putting myself into the healthcare. Okay, so I have actually put in application.
Do you have the necessary skills, so on and so forth?
Okay, I have the O level that they want. Okay, and I have many years of admin experience.
So you wanted to do admin work in the healthcare industry?
Correct.
Right.
Clinic assistant and all those things.
Before we get to that, though, was your company willing to re-employ you, the one that you were working for up to that point?
Yes, but the problem is they need me to go to those courses that is very long duration, and I will be bonded after that.
I see. And you weren't prepared to be bonded?
Yeah, because at this age, I was thinking going on as a contract worker.
Right, I understand.
It should be fine.
But if you were bonded, it would have meant that you would have had training, plus you would have had a job waiting for you.
Yeah, correct. That's
And
why
training
I
is
don't
always a good thing, right? I mean, it's all about upgrading your skills and all that
Yes,
to stay
correct.
relevant.
Which I'm actually undergoing off and on the in-house training. But the
Okay.
problem is they want us to go for the training that takes about 2 years. Which I find is very tedious because I work till about 7, and they say they can switch a little bit to let me go training from 6 until 11 every maybe alternate days. So it's very tiring.
So they weren't very flexible with that. Okay, so now you're looking for a new job, I understand.
Yeah, correct.
And what has it been like? Not very good.
Yeah, correct. That's why I was thinking, actually I didn't want to call in, but you were talking about government encouraging employers to employ elderly worker like us.
That's right.
Beyond the age of 65, actually, up to 67.
Yeah, correct. But even 62 and SME, they don't even consider. What about, you're talking about 65?
Well, your company did consider it. It's just that there were certain issues that you guys couldn't agree on, I understand. But your experience with trying to look for a new job has not been very good. Tell us
that's right.
Tell us what challenges you're facing.
I don't know, because in fact, I spoke to this recruiter. They say they don't mind, but until now, I did not receive any request for interview. I've sent you my resume, in fact.
Right.
So I find I don't really know what actually the employer is thinking about. You're talking about even 62 plus, you are not going to employ, giving a chance, giving them a chance to go in. What about 65?
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
How do you think mindsets can be changed about such issues? Because clearly the government is saying, I'm going to try and incentivize companies, or they are going to try and incentivize companies to do this. But beyond that, I've always thought about it this way. Companies do have an interest in re-employing older workers or employing them because you come with experience. Plus, we are in a situation where we're facing a labor crunch.
That's right.
That's right.
So what's the alternative? If you don't hire older workers, if you're not more open-minded about who you hire, you'll have a labor shortage.
Correct. That's what I meant.
Yeah, yet they need incentives to do this.
For the people like us, which I want to air out. I've been trying to call your number, but cannot get through.
Okay,
So
good. I'm glad you got through today, ma'am.
Yeah, that's why. I'm happy that you all bring this topic up quite a number of times already. But unfortunately, I did not manage to get through.
So how do you think things can change here beyond just incentivizing companies to hire older workers?
Yeah, I hope they do something about it.
What would you suggest?
I would suggest that they should give these people a chance. At least call them up for interview, not just put their application aside.
Right.
At least call them, right?
Give them a chance to express themselves and see how fit they are. I'm physically very fit, even though I'm 60, coming to 63. So I believe that the employers themselves are not open to give these people a chance to present themselves and to show them that actually they can be of an asset to the company if they are given a chance.
Thank you very much, Ms. C, for calling us and sharing your story with us. In fact, the labor movement has just announced that it hopes to get about 500 unionized companies to voluntarily extend the re-employment age ceiling to 67 in the next 1 to 2 years. NTUC's Deputy Secretary General Heng Chi Hao was speaking to reporters on the sidelines of an NTUC appreciation dinner for mature workers recently, yesterday, in fact. And he says it will actually strengthen the labor movement's push to change legislation in the future. So if the NTUC is confident of doing this among unionized companies, what about other companies that are not unionized? What's happening there? I do know that there are many companies who've done a really good job of this and have given older workers a chance.
Right.
More flexibility when it comes to re-employment, at least that.
Correct.
And under the Retirement and Re-employment Act, this one kicked in 2012, companies are required to re-employ eligible workers when they turn 62. Just like in the case of Miss C, her company did offer her re-employment, except the terms were not agreeable, were not mutually agreeable.
Yeah.
So tell us more about what your experience has been like when it comes to re-employment. Are there conditions to meet that you just can't meet, or do they cut your pay for whatever reason? You know, if it's a lighter workload and they cut your pay because of that, sure, I think that's fair. But if it's the same workload, do you still experience that? Some have told me their wages remain stagnant even though they're performing well beyond the age of 62.
Yeah, that's very sad. Well, you can start talking to us on 669-11938. We'll be back with you in just a while.
How receptive have companies been in terms of re-employing older workers on fair terms? We want to know what your experience has been like if you're an older worker, even if you're beyond the age of 50, because many people in their 50s, I wouldn't say many, but I have a couple of friends who are in their 50s and they tell me they have a hard time.
I'm one of them.
But in this case, we're talking about re-employment. At least you're employed.
Right, yes.
Andre, be grateful you're employed. Okay.
Yes.
We're talking about re-employment beyond 65. Currently, under the Retirement and Re-employment Act, companies are required to re-employ eligible workers when they turn 62, up to the age of 65. The plan is to have this go up to 67. Okay, so companies will be asked to re-employ eligible workers when they turn 65 up to the age of 67. And the Manpower Ministry has said that from next January, firms that do this voluntarily will be offered incentives. What do you think companies are looking for in terms of incentives? The people who work in such companies have brought up things like wages and medical bills. They are saying that these costs will go up and they would appreciate some subsidies. In fact, some have suggested wage subsidies of between 10 and 25%. They say that this sort of thing will allow them to reduce the older workers' working hours if they so choose, yet offer them higher salaries. So do you think this type of help is necessary? Experts say that this move would actually help many companies address their labor shortage, the labor crunch that we're seeing right now in Singapore. So I feel like if it's going to benefit your business in the long term, you shouldn't be asking for too many incentives. What do you think? 669-11938.
Okay, we've got David on the line. Hi, David. Thanks for holding on.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, I have a small cleaning company, about 40 to 50 staff. 30% of my staff are actually elderly, age about 65 and above.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, we face a challenge. A lot of emphasis and being placed on employer. But my point of view is, when we get a contract get a new contract, actually some of the owners or the management, they actually set a clause that they do not want staff who are above 60 or 62.
Do you know why they say this? Is it because of assumptions that they've made about older workers?
They did not explain the reason. They just put it in their contract. So for us as an employer, we on one hand we want to employ these elderly. On the other hand, the client do not want the elderly to be working in the building. So we are somehow sandwiched in between this situation.
That's very difficult.
I really think that we need to have them articulate why they're discriminating in this manner.
Yeah.
You know, because you say that 30% of your staff are over that age,
Yes.
right? Are they performing well, the staff members that you have that are older?
I think that one good point on hiring elderly worker is I think they are very responsible. I think they are very responsible in their work. So I have no issue on the productivity part on the elderly, but it's more on the client side. They do not want they make us look bad in a way.
Yes, I understand.
Exactly.
You know what you should do, I think, David? You should ask them to say why and then explain to them if those assumptions or whatever reasons they're giving have no basis.
Actually, it's quite okay, because for us, I try to make the working environment better for the elderly. So those the job scope that are required to be under the sun for long, I try not to put the elderly. Try to put them inside the building. So the client, they do not want the elderly to be inside the building. So
oh dear, I just don't understand this.
I think that the government should not only set the law or the rules on employer-employee, they should even go way beyond the client part, so that we can hire the elderly, make them work, and then So it's not a two-way thing. I think it's more than a two-way thing.
Yeah.
If you had to hazard a guess as to why they don't want the elderly within the building, what would you say?
I think maybe firstly image.
Yeah, it looks bad that you're making old people work like this. That's one of the things, right?
I think maybe image is one.
That's what I was thinking as well. That they just don't want to look bad to their own employees and of course their own clients who might come into the building as well.
Yeah. Then secondly, I think maybe they have a perception that elderly workers are slow, unproductive.
Thank you very much for that.
Thanks for highlighting that. Yes.
Yeah. You see, one might say that elderly people should not be doing such jobs in the first place. I mean, it looks rather sad when I see old aunties cleaning or vacuuming or, doing all of these things within our complex. I feel bad about it too. But many of them want to work as well.
Some need to work.
And some need to work. So if they have applied for the job and they want to work and need to work, I don't think any company should discriminate in this manner, that we don't want them in the building, just outside. But it's harder and harsher outside. side.
I think we should be thankful that MediaCorp does not have
any such discriminatory policies.
Yeah. Thankfully.
So I think it's rather sad if they make assumptions about the capabilities of the worker, or if they say we just don't want them there, because of image issues. If the elderly person wants to work and is looking for that source of employment, no one should deny them.
I mean, I just think it's very, very sad.
Call us on 669-11938. We'll talk to you right after news and sports. Stay with us. How receptive have companies been in terms of re-employing older workers on fair terms? If you're an older worker, tell us what your experience has been like. Are employers reluctant to give you a chance? And even if they do you have to settle for stagnant or lower pay for the same amount of work? I know many companies who've done a great job with this and really rehire their workers on fair terms. Now, as you know, but others don't, okay? Under the Retirement and Re-employment Act, which kicked in 2012, companies are indeed required to re-employ eligible workers when they turn 62 up to the age of 65. Now, though, the Manpower Ministry says that from next year, firms that voluntarily rehire older workers past 65 up to the age of 67 will be offered incentives as well. But experts say that re-employment policies actually work in favor of businesses in terms of addressing the labor crunch that we're facing right now in Singapore. Considering this, should companies really be asking for incentives to do something that will ultimately help their business anyway? How much help is enough? If you're an employer, we want to hear from you. So far, we've heard from so many listeners who've said that they have seen instances of discrimination against older workers.
Right, yeah.
So what can be done to change this mindset? To get the business perspective of this, we're now joined by Ang Yuit. He's Vice President of Membership and Training at the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. Let's hear from him first. Then we'll get to your calls, yeah? Now, Ang Yuit, I understand that at this point, there are government funding schemes to make workplaces and processes more elderly friendly. For instance, I know about the Advantage scheme. This was enhanced just a few years ago in 2010 to allow employers to tap into funds to develop HR systems as well as job redesign initiatives targeted at enhancing the productivity of older workers. What other schemes are there currently to encourage companies to rehire older workers?
There are a few schemes available. One of them that's run off by Spring is WorkPro.
Yes, WorkPro.
Work redesign and workplace improvement, job redesign.
Including flexi work arrangements and all that, right?
That's right. And then there is the special employment credit that offsets, CPF payments. And then there's the workfare income supplement scheme. So there are quite a few schemes out there, and some of them really just pertain to job redesign that can be used for older workers as well.
But so here's the thing, you see, why are companies asking for even more incentives in order to rehire workers past the age of 67? Especially since we have pointed out the re-employment policy is seen as a way of addressing the labor crunch, which should eventually benefit employers. Why should employers be further incentivized to do something that will ultimately benefit their business anyway?
Yes, actually, I think you raised a very good point. I think for most companies, I think the fact that they can easily find and access a pool of talent is more important than having incentives to get them to work for older workers. So if people ask anyone, any employer, say, look, if there was an incentive, would that help you? Of course, the answer would be yes. But if you ask majority of them, is it more important to have an access to a pool of workers that they can easily find versus a supplement or a grant? I think most will answer the former.
So, in other words, they would hire older workers anyway, regardless of incentives?
I think if the fit is there and if the availability and the ease of finding them, is there, definitely. Because I think for many SMEs, they're actually more interested to fill a position than discriminate. I'm sure there are people who would still,
discriminate. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there are people who may still have certain views about certain things, but I think it's changing because the labor market is not easy nowadays, right? So
you think the incentives are not necessary? Additional incentives?
I think the incentives are always no one would say no to that.
Yes, of course. If you give it to them, they'll say yes, I'll take it. But are they necessary? Is the question.
Well, if you ask me, if there was a pool of money and I had, let's say, a fixed amount of budget, and should I put it to incentive or should I put it to, let's say, other users to say perhaps find a way to surface and allow for easy access and tapping into this pool so the SMEs can find people better or older workers who with the right skill set and fit. I would think that I would prefer personally that happens.
But here's the thing. Are SMEs having problems accessing older workers? As far as we can see, older workers are applying for jobs. We're talking here also about older workers who are already working in the company being rehired and re-employed on fair terms. So is there really a problem with accessing older workers? If they're already working for you, all you need to do is rehire them on fair terms, extend their employment, in other words. Right.
I think for companies that have the right fit, I'm not exactly sure. What has been cited as examples, but I'm quite sure that companies will be very willing to extend. But sometimes you have a worker that may want to take life on a slower pace, or they may have other ideas in terms of what they want to do after they reach a certain age.
Okay, so yes or no to incentives being necessary? Simply tell us, Angyuit.
Okay, in my view, incentives are not necessary to...
Okay, not necessary because ultimately it does benefit your business, correct?
Yes.
With or without incentives, the move to rehire older workers would benefit in the long term. Let's see what Christopher has to say about this. Hi, Christopher. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes. Okay, I just have to state my age first, 59. I'm 59.
Right.
And I'm currently, this is my fourth job change. And it's now I'm a handyman, doing all kinds of things, repairs and all that.
What were you originally doing, Christopher?
I'm a real estate agent for 20 years.
Then what happened?
Then I make a switch that I find that I think to gainfully employ for up to 75 years old, I need to be a contract worker, basically take jobs as it comes along.
Why do you say that? Have you applied for, say, a full-time job but have not been able to get one?
It was very frightening when I went for a job, job
interview?
Not interview, but I was looking at what is job scope there.
Right, okay.
They tell me, your job, your experience is not relevant in our industries, in all kind of industries. So I suggest you become a security guard.
Did they have a valid point, though? Did you lack the experience in that particular job? Yeah, they had a valid point.
Yeah, in when you're a real estate agent for 20 years, what else can you do? So
have you looked into getting some skills that might make you more employable, Christopher?
Yes, basically, I have an opportunity to go on to do in the construction industries, and then I expanded my skill set by going through training with BCA Academy for 2.5 years to broaden my scope of understanding what is needed in the construction industry and how to do certain jobs.
So you have more skills already, you're saying?
Yes.
2.5 years, wow.
Yes, and I find that wasn't adequate, so I went to study in the Polytechnic for electrical engineering diploma.
Looks like you've made a lot of strides in terms of educating yourself and gaining some skills.
Yes.
So has that worked out for you now or not?
Yeah, I mean, I got 50% of my hair is black.
Okay.
So whenever people see me, they say, "Oh, uncle, yes." I respect people who call me uncle.
Okay, and, uncle.
The thing, yes, thank you. And the thing is the problem with going to studies at our age, at 59. First thing, eyesight. We really has got problem focusing on the board and what you read on in front of you.
Wouldn't glasses take care of that?
I wear progressive, but when you're out of focus a little bit, it is very bad when you do with progressive. So I've got a reading glass. I recently got everything fitted because I face problem.
Okay, Christopher, are you facing any discrimination when it comes to now, armed with your skills, going out and trying to get a job? Or being even hired on a contract basis, as you put it?
Yes. I have no problems because nobody wants to do jobs that I do. Like when a toilet gets choked, I get it cleared. Nobody would do it because it smells and it and
somebody has to do those jobs, though.
Yeah.
I know that some people say that you've got to look for a niche.
Yeah.
You know, where are the talent shortages?
That's right.
And go and learn those skills and get it done. And I think, Christopher, you have been extremely proactive. I think going to learn things.
Years. Wow.
You see, you have to put in the time if you want to have the skills as well. And I think that's been very, very proactive. But no doubt challenging.
Yeah.
No doubt challenging as well. Let's see what Mrs. Lim has to say about this. Hi, Mrs. Lim.
Mrs. Lim? Hello? Yes?
She's still working.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Lim. Can you start from the top, please? We missed you a little earlier.
My mom, she's now 73.
73, okay.
And she's still working. And this company, is a local SME. She has been working there since 40 over years old. I mean, when she's 40 over. So it's like almost 30 years. And she works because she just doesn't want to stay at home.
Right, so she works by
really
choice.
Me, but she just wants to work. But because her health is also not really allowing her to work full day, her employer compromised for her to work a half-day week, but they cut her CPF too. But she is very clear objective of getting herself active rather than lying at home. She continues to take on the job. And recently she attempted to tender again. She said, maybe I'm causing inconvenience to the company because a lot of things I might not be able to do. Again, the immediate supervisor advised her, keep the job, stay active. It's okay, we give and take, as long as you're
Very
not.
nice.
Well done.
And I tell you, we are really happy to see there's still some managers on the ground. They are able to be so nice.
Right. And treat employees fairly, regardless of their age, and work out an arrangement that works for everyone. Thank you so much for sharing such a positive story with us, Mrs. Lee. We really do appreciate it after all the stories of discrimination and ageism that we've been hearing this morning.
Right.
Let's just go back to Ang Yuet, who is VP of Membership and Training at the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. Now, Yuet, earlier you said that incentives really should not be seen as a necessity in order to encourage employers to give older workers a chance and rehire them beyond 65. However, companies have brought up certain things like, okay, we need some resources to redesign jobs, change work processes, automate some operations. For these types of purposes, to what extent will they need help?
Oh, okay.
Especially SMEs.
Yes, I totally agree that the whole process of maybe hiring a different type of worker may require a job redesign, as well as a better job clarity. Because if you think about it, there certain SMEs in their work, it may be really a broad-based work, and they may not have a certain job design carved out for targeting a certain sector of the needs of the employees. And in those cases, sensitizing the employers to those aspects and actually allowing them to actually take some work to do that, that's actually beneficial to both the SME as well as the society at large. Especially when there are a group of them that's trying to come back into work and they can't find it because of the very nature of the job.
Just one last thing, some older workers say that they've seen their wages stagnate or even cut, although their workload may not have been lightened. This is in the event of re-employment. Also, we know that the CPF contribution rate for older workers is also less than of workers below 50. However, considering that these workers do face a greater urgency in terms of saving for retirement, to what extent do you think all of these things really need to be relooked?
I think this is quite important because on one hand, you're looking at SMEs facing a labor shortage. On the other hand, you're seeing these a group of people saying that, that the wages are stagnating, and I'm assuming in these cases they are really productive. So I think that there's definitely a gap somewhere that we're seeing on both sides that we can bridge.
And how to bridge this? How to get rid of ageism in that sense?
I think now we also have to understand this part. Now, a lot of these older workers, they are not, they may not be really internet savvy, if you think about it. Now, if you look at how society has progressed in the last 10 years, internet has become almost a primary source of sourcing for workers and information and knowledge. So whatever you're seeing as a gap here may be because of information disparity, and you may have a large group of SMEs out there potentially who may be very happy to take on these people at fair wages, fair terms, that they do not realize because these older workers are not making themselves available because they are not.
So they're not going online to look for jobs. Certainly more needs to be done to arm them with those skills and open up opportunities for that. Thank you very much, Ang Yuet, for joining us today from the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. Now, if you have something to say about this, please talk to us on Facebook, Official 938 Live. Thanks for your phone calls today.